I have a shelf in my garage with 3 planned collections on it, 2 paid bundles, and a binder full of magazine tear-outs. I've owned them for years. I built almost nothing from any of them, not because I stopped wanting to build, because every time I went back to them, looking for a specific project, trying to match something to my space or my tools, I either couldn't find what I needed, or I found it, and the plan let me down halfway through. That quiet frustration of owning something you paid for and never using it is one that more woodworkers carry than will admit it. So when I came across TedsWoodworking, my first instinct wasn't interest. It was skepticism. Another big collection. Another promise. And I'd been there before. Here's what I decided to do instead of just buying it and hoping. I gave myself 60 days to find every reason not to recommend it. And I want to tell you exactly what I found. Most people who've been burned by a planned collection assume the problem is that they don't build enough to justify the investment, that they're not serious enough woodworkers, that the collection was fine, they just didn't use it the way they should have. I believed that for a long time too, but after going through enough collections, I started noticing something that had nothing to do with how serious I was. The plans themselves were the problem. Specifically, the way almost every planned collection is built follows the same flawed model. Gather as many plans as possible, package them together, and sell the volume. The number becomes a selling point. Quantity over whether any individual plan actually works at a real workbench. I call this the volume trap. And it creates 2 problems that kill most planned collections before you ever open them. First, quantity without organization is useless. A zip file with 10,000 PDFs isn't a library. It's a search problem. If you can't find what you need in 2 minutes, you don't use it. And most collections are exactly that. Folders inside folders, inconsistent naming, no filtering, no difficulty levels. You open it once, feel overwhelmed, and never go back. Second, volume without quality verification means you never know which plans work until you've already wasted lumber finding out. And after that happens 2 or 3 times, you stop trusting collection entirely. That's why most planned collections sit on shelves. Not because you're not serious. Because the collection was built to sell, not to be used. That's what I went into this test determined to measure. Let me show you the 3 specific things I tested, because they map directly to the 3 ways planned collections fail the people who buy them. The first test was organization. I want to know if I could go from I want to build something to holding a usable plan in under 5 minutes. With most collections I've owned, that's impossible. You know the feeling. You open the folder, you see categories that were clearly an afterthought. You dig through subcategories that overlap in ways that don't make sense. And 20 minutes later, you've either given up or found something that's close but not quite right. You tell yourself you'll sort through it properly this weekend. You never do. The project graveyard in your garage didn't start with a bad cut. It started with a collection you couldn't navigate. I tested the search system on day 1, typed in 3 specific keywords: Adirondack chair, wall cabinet, and workbench. All 3 returned organized results filtered by difficulty level in under 30 seconds. I picked a project, had the plan open, and was reading the cut list within 2 minutes. That was the first thing I couldn't fault. The second test was plan accuracy. Specifically, whether the cut list materials lists were reliable enough to take to a lumber yard without second-guessing every line. And this is where most people make a mistake that costs them real money. They assume a professional-looking plan is an accurate one. I've printed plans that looked publication-ready and had measurement errors that didn't show up until I was mid-build with boards already cut. So I picked 5 projects across different categories: furniture, outdoor, workshop storage, and built each one, not partially. Start to finish. I took the materials list of the store and bought exactly what was on it. No adding a buffer, no buying extra just in case. If the list was wrong, I'd know. Every list was accurate, not approximately accurate. Accurate. The boards I bought matched the dimensions in the cut list because the cut lists were written based on actual milled lumber sizes, not nominal. That's a distinction that sounds small until you come home with boards that don't fit the plan, because nobody who wrote the list had ever stood at a lumber yard with real wood. What nobody tells you about plan accuracy is that it's almost impossible to evaluate before you build. You can read a plan 3 times and not catch an error that becomes obvious the moment you make the first cut. The only real test is building it. And these plans were built in a real workshop by the people who wrote them before they were ever published. Third test, the custom plan request. This one I went into most skeptically. The claim is that you can submit a specific project request, dimensions, constraints, specific space requirements, and the team will draft it, build it, test it, and deliver a finished plan to your library. That sounds like the kind of thing that gets promised and quietly never delivered. I submitted a request for a corner tool cabinet designed to fit a specific wall in my shop, 38 inches wide, angle back wall, 6.5 feet tall, specific enough that nothing in the existing library matched it. 2 weeks later, the plan was in my library, not a rough draft, a complete plan with cut lists, schematics, and step-by-step instructions. I built it the following weekend. It fit the wall exactly. And here's what all three of these tests have in common. Every single one of them, the search system, the plan accuracy, the custom request, holds up because of one discipline that most plan collections skip entirely. Nothing gets published until it's been physically built and tested in a real workshop. That's the principle behind the whole thing. And it's the reason the volume trap doesn't apply here. This isn't a collection assembled for scale. It's a library built for use. By week 3 of the test, I had stopped looking for reasons to criticize and started paying attention to something different. How I was actually using the library compared to every collection I'd owned before. The shift was structural. Every other collection I've had requires me to adapt to it, figure out its folder system, learn its naming conventions, work around its gaps. This library is built around how a woodworker actually looks for a project. Keyword, category, difficulty level, done. The search works the way a tool should. You describe what you want to build, and it shows you options. You pick one. The plan opens, and it reads like instructions written by someone who built the piece the same morning, and is walking you through it from memory, not someone who drew on a computer and hoped it made sense. That's the difference between a plan that was designed and a plan that was built. The 5 projects I finished in 60 days, a storage bench, an Adirondack chair, a small outdoor planter, the corner tool cabinet, and a floating wall shelf. None of them required a second trip to the lumber yard. None of them had a step I couldn't follow. None of them produced a half-finished project that used to be my default outcome. The Adirondack chair took one Saturday. I found a plan in under a minute, bought the exact lumber on the list, and followed the steps in order. The chair is on my back porch right now. My neighbor saw it, wanted one, and I built a second one the following weekend and charged him for it. That's not a story about skill. That is a story about what happens when a plan removes every obstacle between wanting to build something and actually finishing it. The objection I hear most from people who've done their research on this is straightforward. I already have plans I haven't used. What makes me think I'll use these? It's a fair question. And the honest answer is that using this library feels different from every other collection I've owned. Not because of the number of plans, but because of how fast you can go from an idea to a plan in your hand. Most collections create friction at the decision point. You want to build something, but you're not sure what's available, so you browse, get overwhelmed, and do nothing. This library removes that friction. The search is fast. The results are organized. The plans are complete. The path from inspiration to lumber list is measured in minutes, not hours. Greg in Columbus bought the library and built 4 projects in 3 months. A coffee table, a cutting board, floating shelves, and a toy chest for his grandson. He'd owned other plan collections for years and built almost nothing from them. The difference wasn't motivation. It was being able to find what he wanted and trust that the plan would hold up. Carol in Charlotte built 2 Adirondack chairs from plans in a library and sold them at craft fair for $175 each. The entire library cost her $67. The math worked out in the first weekend. The reason both of those outcomes are possible comes down to one thing. When someone builds a plan before you do, they absorb the mistakes so you don't have to. The result is a plan you can follow without interpretation and a finished project instead of another afternoon of troubleshooting. Here's what I think happens if you close this video and stay where you are. You still have the collections you already own. You'll open one of them occasionally, look for something specific, not quite find it, and close it again. The project you've been meaning to build will keep being projects you've been meaning to build, not because you lack the intention, because the friction between wanting to build and finding a plan you can trust hasn't changed. 6 months from now, the shelf in your garage still has those binders on it. The workbench you've been meaning to build still isn't there. The Adirondack chair you pictured on your back porch is still a picture. The alternative is specific and grounded. You find the project you want to build. You search for it, find it in under a minute, download the plan. You buy exactly what's on the materials list, nothing extra. You follow the steps in order, start to finish, without hitting a wall that sends you back to YouTube or the lumberyard. And at the end of Saturday or 2 Saturdays, there's something finished in your garage that wasn't there before. That's not an optimistic version of what could happen. That's just what building from a tested plan feels like when the collection was built to be used, not just to be sold. You've already invested in collections that didn't deliver. That's not a reflection of your commitment. It's a reflection of what those collections were built to do. I went into 60 days looking for reasons to tell you this wasn't worth it. What I found instead was a library I still use every week. The plans are built before they reach you. That single fact changes everything downstream. The accuracy, the usability, the results. Everything else follows from it. If you want to see the library for yourself, the link is in the description. The 60-day money-back guarantee means you can run your own tests with nothing at risk. I'd be curious what you build. If this video was useful, leave a comment, especially if you've had your own experience with planned collections that didn't deliver. And subscribe if you want more of this kind of content. I'll see you in the next one.